Attention, passengers. This is your co-pilot speaking. Your pilot is black-minded, so you are not going blind and there is no power failure. You are merely experiencing the immense blackness of his proximity, and when you hear his voice, you and the cabin will get even darker than you are currently. We will be cruising at the speed equal to light because the one other thing that travels equally fast is darkness. Your loved ones awaiting your arrival may not recognize you at first sight. This is normal. Simply tell them about the pilot and they will understand. We will taxi to the runway now, so please buckle up and prepare for a high-speed departure. Thank you for choosing Jet Black Airways, where the phrase Jet Black is also a verb. We hope you keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Justice forever.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. You know, this habit that I'm going to refer to as a habit of asking people a question and then interrupting their answer because you just want to win an argument. This is done not only by our people, but I'm going to let you know when it is that people do this. I want the black manosphere to shun this. We will have debates and we'll have discussions, but I want this particular habit to be shunned because it goes beyond just winning arguments. Merely winning an argument is actually something for children and something for women. That's a stage to which they go in which that is the goal and that is important. For men, if we actually have to be productive and protective and providers, then damn it, we have a right to shun that as being a final goal of anything. And that means that we're going to have to put substance over arguments and debates. We're going to have to actually care and fivaguk about things beyond just winning an argument. We're going to have to think more along the lines of educators. It's easy for me to say that because I'm an educator. What you have to understand is that it's actually easy for you in many cases to think like an educator. First off, there's a subject about which you know a lot. That is where you become an educator. Or that is a subject about which you're an educator, but then you become one when you learn how best to explain in your first language, maybe another language too, that subject about which you know a lot. Mine has been history, ethnic relations, international relations. My students yesterday, who did not show up today for class, by the way, gave me a free day. All showed up yesterday, and they said, when I began to tell them what they need to do, they began to talk about the test, and I said to them, look, I don't keep track of all the numbers in my head. We have an online platform in which the classes and the grades are kept. It does the calculations. There's a way we set it up, but it does the calculations. I am not here. I'm not here for doing the calculations. So don't ask me what score you need to get on the final exam so that you can turn around and pass just barely squeaking by the advanced English. Because if you pass advanced English just barely, you still go into the core curriculum unprepared. You will not know what to do. You will not be ready. And I'm going to tell you, you will look stupid. And when I told this to my students, some of them kind of looked dumbfounded and looked appalled. And they said, but that's what our last teacher did. And I said to them, I don't know how he even got the calculations. And that's all fine and dandy, but I don't fivaguk. See, if you're only focused on passing, look at what that did. He told you, now you're sitting here in my class, you started unprepared and unready for the advanced level, and now you're about to finish unprepared. If you pass or fail, you would not be prepared for the next. You missed the subject of this. You missed the substance, which is you are supposed to become better in English, not just able to understand me and not just able to be understood by me, but to be able to say it correctly as well and to write it correctly. You were supposed to be able to say most things in English and write most things in English correctly by the time you left. Everyone have some errors, native speakers do, but you were supposed to have most of it correct when you say it and when you write it, and y'all aren't there yet. And they kept interrupting and raising their hands to ask more questions, and it dawned on me, we haven't gotten to page 145 yet. And they keep asking about the test and numbers, and eventually I said, stop. You've asked me about 8 questions about numbers and figures. I'm not a math teacher. I took my last math class 27 years ago. Fuck the shuck up about math and about your need for a specific number on your final exams in English to pass. Again, I told y'all from the beginning, if you are worried about only an individual exam, you should fail. If you are worried about learning how to speak English correctly, fixing your mistakes, make improvements, you should pass, and you will. I told y'all that. Your English is as bad today as it was in the beginning of the semester. I should fail you all for that on its own. You're not getting better in English because you're missing days. You're not repeating corrections. You do repeat mistakes, and you know the corrections. And here you are asking me how much you need only to pass, not even to get out with an A. Man, if you focused on the language, you would already have A's and you would just need to keep on doing what you're doing to keep them. I told him there was a time when if you gave me a Spanish test, I was not going to fail it unless it was in literary Spanish or unless it was in the Spanish from centuries ago, or if it was a spoken test in specifically Dominican or Cuban or Puerto Rican Spanish. Sorry, y'all, but your Spanish is not Spanish. It's called Español, not Español. Lazy mother. Anyway, look, y'all, don't think I actually hate Puerto Ricans or Cubans or Dominicans. It's not. This is actually jokes. We roast each other a lot about the ways that we speak our languages. But they really are incomprehensible. It's not possible to understand them. And I don't blame myself. I look at them and I say, why is it that you can't pronounce an S? Is it going to kill you or something? F out of here with that mess. So anyway, I'm going to tell you guys as well that my students they began to ask some questions and then interrupt my answers because they didn't want the whole answer. And what they really wanted was for me to see it their way, which already did not help them. They were still on that Bedouin. And I eventually had to say to one student, "Are you a Bedouin?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, that explains it. That's why you hard-headed and stubborn. That stubbornness does not help you in education, especially education of another language. Do what the hell I told you." I've taught many people how to go from one level to the next in English, and their first language was Arabic. I've been doing this for 10 years. Could you try trusting me? This guy wanted to tell me that after they finish taking test 3, they don't need to show up again until it's time to take the standardized test, the proficiency test. And I told him, when you were done taking test 3, you still need to show up. If they schedule classes, you still need to show up. You just got through taking a listening exam that I designed, which is what an advanced listening exam is supposed to be. You just got through taking this, and what did you all do? You clicked on the wrong answers, and it's why I swear I selected this one. You didn't select that one. You selected the wrong one. Well, I heard words I didn't know. Of course you did, and you weren't supposed to ask me what they mean during the exam anyway. These are words you're supposed to know in advanced English. There were other words that you're supposed to be able to gather the meaning from by knowing all the other words in there from context. And they said, well, how am I supposed to do that if I don't know the context because I don't know the meanings of the other words? And I told him, if you don't know them, you're supposed to be back in intermediate. You were passed along unprepared. Well, newsflash, now they don't want to pass y'all along anymore. They want us to be honest in the grading as to whether or not you are prepared for the next level or not, and you're not. Now I'm sitting up here with the book open, ready to start page 145 to give y'all one more skill. And you're still asking about exactly how much you need just to pass, just to barely make it. You don't have the vocabulary for this. We never got to page 145 because they never quit asking questions about this. And I eventually had to tell them, it's your attitude. That's what it is. And every time I would tell them what they needed to know, what they missed, somebody would interrupt. And I had to say to them, the attitude includes thinking that you know enough to interrupt me when I'm answering your question. When someone asks you something and then they interrupt your answer, it's either that they should be saying to you, oh, wait, that's right, I forgot, my bad, I'm sorry. Or they should be saying, wait, there's a car coming behind you, an emergency, trying to save your life. Or maybe if they say, wait, you got to turn the volume up, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if you said fork or pork, or something like that. These are the reasons to interrupt someone when they're answering a question you asked. Hell, if they're answering a question someone else asked, these are the reasons to interrupt. Maybe if somebody mistakenly said, for instance, 1948 when they meant to say 1984. Okay, fine. But other than that, fuck this, shuck up. When the person finishes answering the question, you will get your chance to speak. On panels, on the Reverend Brother Pastor Deacon Dr. Hurricane Edward Allen Anderson's live stream earlier, Marty came on and schooled us. And I don't know the name of the one that kept on doing this, but he would ask just to interrupt the answers because he seemed like he wanted to win an argument. And he's not the only one. This has been going on for a while. And in the Black manosphere, we have generally gotten better about this, I will admit, but I want us to improve more quickly than what we have been. That is a habit that in our case serves the matriarchy, the gynocracy, the hyenocracy. It satisfies the hybristophilia and the hypermaterialism and the misandry and the anti-blackness of the hyena monkey bitch. Do you know what they want us to be like when you think about it? Remember when Fleece Johnson went on and those aunties interviewed him? They didn't care that that man had been broken. As a matter of fact, that was great. He's broken, we're not. No, she's broken, but somewhere down the line, that gynocratic matriarchal culture broke him, and he knows his dad. Marty W. in the chat, who I'm not sure is Marty McFly or not, but there was a man in the chat named Marty W. who stated that his 6th grade sons are experiencing being taught feminazism in school. Now, I think that's a different Marty because he's going through this, and Marty McFly is in Brazil. So I don't think these are the same Marty. I could be wrong. But Marty W. proceeded to continue and say that they were intentionally in the PE classes letting the girls win And I thought, they would have never done this for black people, especially black boys, but they would have done none of this for black people, period, when we were coming up. And now they're willing to do this to turn white females against white males and black females against black males. And one of the things that this winds up leading to is each woman saying that the other male, the other race's males are better. And I can see why white men might be pissed, but it's not a good deal for black men either. I get it. And to be honest with you, I would say this. I don't think that white males really have much to celebrate or lament, because the loss is the loss of normal couple formation. It is not the loss of specifically the white woman. That's why they beat us to the punch of getting passports and going abroad to more traditional areas to find someone. That's the reason why. They went through that for that reason. We're going to have to get rid of that habit, because winning an argument is a priority that does not belong to adult males. It doesn't belong to adult women either. It's really something only kids might be excused for having. I'm not saying arguments don't happen, but for us as men, I can tell you how we can beat this. Simply put, change the goal from the very beginning. The goal will not be to win an argument. The goal will be to understand how somebody with a platform that's wrong came to that platform thinking that it was correct. That will be better. When we come to understand that, that will defeat most false arguments. If we were to simply say, okay, look, how did you come to this? What did you see? What did you observe? Because normally, if someone does not have the same platform as you, which is to be expected in many cases, I mean, people have different opinions. But if someone does not have the same platform as you, the question would simply be, what did they experience that brought them to it? There are men in the black manosphere now, in North America and on the home continent, who believe that there are no good women. Now, what led them to this? It's simple. They didn't get to meet them. Now, what does this tell you? There are those or others of us who say they exist. It is the simps that say, no, most women actually are good. You're just a bad dude. You're getting bad women for that reason. A lot of simps are saying this. But men that ain't simping, well, what shapes the difference between them? Well, some have said, I met them, but they're rare. And others have said, I didn't meet them. Now, what that means is that they're so rare that not every man gets to meet them. I mean, when you see something and observe it multiple times, you know it exists. There are species not only throughout the world, but there are species in North America that people can't prove exist to scientists, but people know they exist. The reason I didn't continue the story time series was because nobody else sent in anything to me, but that one man had sent something in, had an encounter with a species that other people have witnessed. I looked into it. A lot of people have witnessed a similar species, too tall to be a regular person at least. It's not canine as far as it's not a canine species people cannot, that scientists have a name for and classification for. So what is it? Well, we don't know, because no one's caught one and proven it and analyzed its genome, and we don't know what it is. But so many people have observed it. Some people have observed it so many times that they're sure there is a species unidentified. I think they call them cryptids. And unfortunately, what's happening is that in the West, well-meaning women are becoming like these cryptids. They're fables. You hear they exist, but most of you will never see one. This is how it is that people come to these different platforms. So instead of arguing about these things, you simply state, well, okay. Or you at least learn how it is that they come to that platform, because when people are willing to accept certain truths that are uncomfortable, they're generally willing to accept truth. Even if they don't like it, they would at least acknowledge it as truth if it's backed by evidence. So what this means is they're going on the evidence available to them. And this is why there are black men that will sit up and say, no, ain't no good women. It's not right. I can't tell you that that's the case. Numerically speaking, that wouldn't be even likely. There are too many individuals of both genders amongst the species having free will. However, what does this tell you? Bad influences are winning out. And therefore, the men who say there are no good ones, well, they're not lying. They really don't get to witness the good ones. There are people who sit up and say there's no such thing as Bigfoot. Are those people lying? No, they never got to witness it. I'm not going to argue about whether they're there or not. All I know is there's species in many places that are unidentified, but people see them. And it's very quick. But what I'm saying is that there will be people who are not lying. They will say, okay, this exists. I observed it. There'll be others that say it doesn't exist because there's no record of it, or no official record of it. They ain't lying. Each one went by the evidence available. When you realize this, we don't have to get into just this priority of winning arguments and not losing arguments so that we can sit up and brag and say that somebody couldn't say nothing because we just shut them down. That's something that the hyena bitch likes to do in the hair salon. Girl, he couldn't say nothing. High five, neck roll, finger snap, eye roll. That's their thing. You gonna play into that? How dare you? You need to go ahead and admit that that's some foolishness, that that's some effery, that it's ucked up. Shuck that fit. That's the type of thing that you need to look at somebody and say, man, fit the guck out my face with that sure bit. Just winning an argument is not necessarily, even when you win, it won't necessarily be productive. But when you are trading in information, you are accomplishing something, and that's really going to make a difference. That's necessary. I want you knuckleheads to factor this in the future. You see, many of our bad habits serve this gynocracy. And the funny thing is that even here, where it's a patriarchy for the most part, these same bad habits do weaken the patriarchy. Oh, believe you me, the patriarchy here is vulnerable. It exists, but it is vulnerable. Like I told y'all, Nassauia spreads. You got male feminists here in the bigger cities. It started with the rhetoric of opportunities for women, and that's not really even something most people here don't like. A lot of my students have sisters that are in school. They're studying. A lot of my students have sisters and moms that have jobs and they have careers and opportunities. They don't see women as just things and not people. These women have full agency. That's how they view it. But in the nutshell, you still have women here that are on that Nassauia, and they are against men. And the good thing is that most of these men know it, because that's here. They said there's no other reason for feminism except to be against men, because we never hated women. That's never been the case with them. You don't get that concept of hating women right off the bat. And most women don't see a reason to hate men right off the bat, but that's spreading, and you don't know which woman is actually really a feminist. This is not a society in which people just argue online. It's not like that. This is not one of those societies. This is a society in which people actually put their time in with each other. And I tip my hat to them for that. And so when you have a misandrist on one hand, what's the problem, bruh? The hell do these broads do to you? Matter of fact, how do they have access to you to do these things to you again and again and again if they weren't moms and several wives? And these women do play games when they're not feminists. So this patriarchy is vulnerable. I done already told you I had to drop one student because the women in his family just ran that poor guy ragged. Mostly his sisters. They don't let that man get his job done. We had to drop him. Another student, same thing. He's real better one. He sits up and says, I'm the only son in the family, so he's got to drive them everywhere, here, there, English jacked up, dude smokes, doesn't understand what an exam is. Cat's using AI to write his essays. I don't know how the hell he does it. Refuses to do anything to show that it's not AI. That's how this dude does it, man. So yeah, these bad habits exist even here in this patriarchy, and the patriarchy is less strong than it could be otherwise. So throw this thing out amongst us. In the black manosphere, we need to throw that out. We're not going to do that no more. We may have debates, but we're not just going to prioritize only winning debates and arguments. Let's get up here and open up our mics and upload, record and then upload to the channel when we have information to share. It's not just about the arguments. If we want to argue for sport and for fun, let's take that back to the hyenas that taught us that. There'll be days maybe I just get bored in the summertime, feel like, you know what, I want some smoke. I might open up mine, and then that way we can, might open mine up and say to the sister, yeah, go ahead. Come in and argue this point. Assalamu alaikum. Kemunachin Janub. Alhamdulillah. So maybe we can do that. Maybe I can. I'm going to tell y'all straight up, in all honesty, if I do that, hell, I already did it years ago. I did it at a time when I thought people would be they will be awake, getting ready for work. And I said, okay, you know what, sisterin, go ahead, come in and tell me why it is that men should continue making approaches. This was years back. I think maybe 2020 or 2021. I want to say 2021. No, 2020. I said that. So we're coming up on 4 years. And guess what? Not one logged in to say why we should still have to make approaches. And it gets even more interesting than that, too. Because since that happened, we've had fewer of them, fewer men making approaches, but we've had more ladies complaining about men not making approaches. And so even then, they decided that when I was ready for the smoke and the argument, they weren't going to bring that kind of fun because they knew I was going to be able to shoot that down. Maybe I'll give them another chance now that I remember that. But if we're going to get into the arguments, one, we need to argue with the actual opponents. And two, we shouldn't be confusing the entertainment of an argument with the actual aid and assistance of information. I hope this helps. Thank you for listening as always. Black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, black heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.